Ahoy everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships. My name's Corny Fell, and today we're going to be looking at the Tier 5 American aircraft carrier, the USS Bogue. Now, as with all reviews we've done in the past, both in this game and in War Thunder, we'll have timestamps down below of the various pieces, so if there's an area you particularly want to see, say the final opinion at the end, feel free to skip on ahead to where you want to go. Right now, we're going to get into the port side of the deal, so let's get started. So, as I said, the USS Bogue is the Tier 5 American carrier. It is the first carrier in the American tree that, honestly, is actually worth a damn. The Langley, the Tier 4, is a rather weak ship in the scheme of things, and the Bogue is a huge upgrade. So just a little bit of history about the Bogue, because unlike War Thunder, I think one of the pieces of this game that's very interesting is that these ships all have histories. So the Bogue is obviously the lead ship in the Bogue class of American escort carriers. Her official designation was CVE-9, and as I said, an escort carrier built during World War II, actually launched in January 1942 out of Tacoma, Washington. It was named for the Bogue Sound in North Carolina. The Bogue was primarily an anti-submarine carrier. She spent most of her time in the Atlantic, though she did go between the Pacific and the Atlantic during the war, and accounted for around a dozen, that is 12 submarine kills, along with her squadron, which included, among other ships, the USS Clemson, which is the American T-4 destroyer in this game. Ultimately, the Bogue won a Presidential Unit Citation and 3 battle stars for her efforts during the war, and post-war in 1946, she was retired, and as far as I was able to establish, is still sitting in port somewhere in Washington, more or less just waiting to see if the nation ever needs a small escort carrier. So that concludes history, so let's get into the game statistics. The Bogue has a combat capability, which is functionally the HP pool of the ship, of 36,500, which is an improvement over the Langley, though it's a substantial amount of HP for the tier, but you gotta remember that the Bogue is not armored, so there's exactly nothing that, there's no armor, there's no protection, that's all you've got, and you're going to take a bunch of hits. But moving into aircraft, we already see some significant improvement. The Langley only carried 2 squadrons. The Bogue gets to sling 3 with the upgrade, which is absolutely vital. If you have to free XP it, I highly recommend it. Two squadrons is simply not enough. But in total, you can command 3 squadrons, 6 aircraft per squadron, and your hangar capacity is 28, which is nice because you'll need some spares, and it's nice to have them. The current loadout I'm running is 1 torpedo bomber and 2 dive bomber squadrons, but you can also run a 2 fighter, 1 bomber squadron, and just for, go away. Please stop. There we go. And, of course, the original squad is 1-in-1 fighters and torpedo bombers, exactly like the Langley. As I said, highly recommend free XPing that. The Bogue has 2 secondary guns, actually. She's got a pair of 5-inch, that's 127mm secondary guns, which will fire at surface targets, though, let's be real, 2 5-inch guns ain't going to do a whole lot. Her AA gun complement, another huge upgrade over the Langley. She's got 27 20mm cannons, 8 40mm cannons, plus the 2 secondaries, which can also be made to shoot up. So, unlike the Langley, the Bogue does have an AA complement. You will shoot down some planes, though it's primarily going to be self-defense. And if Japanese, especially carrier planes, are that close to you, you've already got a lot more problems. With a top speed of 16.9, so just under 17 knots, turning radius of 640 meters, and a rudder shift time of 12.6, she's a lot more maneuverable than the Langley, but she's not a very fast ship. She's neither fast nor maneuverable. To be honest, the Bogue, if you get caught by something, you're just dead. That's just kind of how it is. These ships weren't made to be maneuverable or fast. They were made to carry planes, and that's all they really do. And finally, the Bogue has a surface detection range of 11.9 kilometers, which is far enough away that, like, really, you're going to get found out. You're not a destroyer. You can't just hide. In terms of modules, we've already talked about the 2 flight control modules here, which are huge upgrades from the original. There's also a hull upgrade, an upgrade for each of the planes, and then the Independence upgrade, which is the Tier 6. In the scheme of things, I think it's absolutely vital that you get all of these upgrades, and honestly, I would advocate free XPing all of them. Carriers, more than any other ship, are terrible as their base stats. The upgraded fighters are a necessity. The upgraded hull is probably the least important of the 3 groupings, but you have to get a better flight control model, and you really need to upgrade your planes if you want to be effective at anything. So now this is going to conclude the history and port portion, so let's transition into some games. Right, so our first game here is going to be looking at the module that is focused around air supremacy. And the way this review is going to work is I'm going to do from the perspective of air supremacy and from the perspective of the anti-ship loadouts, because really the base loadout just isn't worth talking about. You need to get one of the 2 upgrades. It's up to you which one you want. In this one, I'm running the 2 fighter, 1 bomber, or the air supremacy loadout. And as with, I think, every carrier game I've ever shown on this channel, the initial pieces are always the same. It's call up the boys, send the boys out flying, see what you can bump into. But given the composition of this game, the fact that the enemy has 2 Langleys and we have a Hosho, means that I'm positioned very strongly here for a great game. They have as many fighters as we do, because I'm not sure the Hosho is carrying any fighters, or if he is, he's only carrying 1, and they have 2, so it's not too unbalanced. But the more important fact is that because of the Hosho, I don't feel like and because of the enemy carriers, I don't feel like I'm kind of wasting space on my team. And that's the real downside of the air superiority loadout, is if there are enemy carriers, you are a vital piece of the team, because you can stop a lot of damage. But if there's no enemy carriers, you're basically just a wasted ship slot. So, so the first flights are out, and we catch sight of one of the Langley's fighters. We're going to send the boys in. And just watching the dogfight. It's not really animated, so it's kind of silly. Fighters, I believe, calculate on a pure DPS tracker, basically. So it's kind of tough to predict who's going to win in an even fight. But my fighters are better than his, and I had more of them, so I win by definition. Meanwhile, we're sending our dive bomber squad in. Dive bombers are nice because they at least give the air superiority guys some ability to do damage, and they're not terrible. They used to be a lot better. Initially, the story with dive bombers was at one point they had armor-piercing bombs, which would do about 70,000 damage on a good hit, which was ever so slightly OP. So they left the dive bombers with only high explosive bombs, so they basically only set fires. And then the dive bombers are doing less than 1,000 damage a bomb, which was brutal. Now they've kind of found a happy medium where you're still setting fires, but you might get, like, what do I hit here, about 5k? Yeah, I think it was around 5k and change. That's nice instead of fire, so I forced his repairability out. But while my dive bombers are doing that, I'm microing my planes like I wish I was Korean, and sending them in. I catch sight of the Hosho's fighter squadron actually tangling it up with one of the enemy squadrons, and actually he kind of made what I would say is a bad choice there, given that he was fighting over cruisers. Never a good idea, especially later tiers where the cruisers shred planes. But while I'm sending a squadron in to help with that, I'm just tracking these torpedo planes, and this guy made kind of an interesting choice in that he basically, he had the right idea initially. Send your planes over other ships. Make me pay for coming to shoot you down. But then he just drifted away from them. It's not the right answer, so I'm just going to sit here and shoot them all down, because now I've got, kind of unopposed ability. I'm trying to track the other planes. We've clearly dealt with the Langley's planes, so now it's just a matter of figuring out where the other guys are. So I'm bringing my fighters back to the middle. And that's more or less how I found the air superiority carriers work. You figure out where the enemy carriers are, and you try to just head off all their planes. So this was kind of a risky maneuver. I thought about engaging, but I decided against it, so I started running. I knew he was targeting me, or I was pretty sure he was targeting me, so redeploying my dive bombers real quick. But now that I can even the odds, and the reason I was doing this is not necessarily because I was afraid of the fight, but because my planes are low on ammo, so I could end up losing several I could lose several planes to being unable to break away from the fight. But we've engaged, and he sends another fighter squadron shows up, which kind of sucks, because it does mean that my planes are going to run out of ammo, and I'm probably going to take some unnecessary casualties. But at least I, spread the damage out, and looks like I got several kills, so can't complain too much. Do what you can, just try to minimize the damage. But yeah, that's something that I think you got to get used to as a carrier pilot, is if your planes get locked in with fighters, like, they can't go anywhere, they're dogfighting. But thankfully we got clear of that. We're sending in the dive bomber boys. It's basically, this is the life of an air superiority carrier. For the most part, you're sitting there trying to police the enemy, keep them from doing too much. And here I feel kind of bad because that torpedo squadron got through, and that's something I feel like a lot of players understand, because they understand how carrier gameplay works, but we physically can't stop all the planes. We don't have the squadrons, we don't have the power. It's unfortunate, but there will always be some that get through. That being said, we can get most of them. So that squadron got through, but my planes will be refueled and rearmed in time for the next round, and got another nice hit with our dive bombers there. I've found that the best targets are battleships, obviously. Cruisers are okay. Destroyers are terrible. And the reason destroyers are terrible is because they just move too well, and they're too small, so it's very tough to hit them at the best of times. Battleships, obviously, they're like, it's like shooting fish in a barrel or something. They're massive. But you do what you can, you get some damage in, and I will say that the air superiority air superiority loadouts suffer not only from the the lack of the games where you're just useless, but air superiority carriers don't generally have great sources of damage. And as the game currently stands, as of the patch, the open beta release patch, which I think is darn if I even remember, 0.4, not 4, I think. The shooting down of a plane is not that big of a deal experience-wise. It's something, but it's not like the same as shooting somebody is. Hitting an enemy ship. But back to the game, we've kind of figured out where at least one of the carriers is, because we keep seeing his planes going over here. So we're sending in the boys. Fighter squadrons are full up and loaded again. We're out of reserve planes, though, which kind of sucks, but this guy only carries 28 planes. Not what you can do. And our Hosho's doing his best here. Had kind of an interesting torp spread there. It's very well played in terms of let's make it so he can't dodge them all. Though I'm not convinced that that guy, pretty sure that's Langley, actually did a whole lot in terms of trying to duck it. But what are you gonna do? I think he realizes he's dead, because I've shot down a bunch of his planes already. So we'll just mop up these fighters real quick, nice and easy, no stress. And we'll go hunting. And by hunting, I mean mostly hanging around this carrier until something happens, because I know where the planes are coming from. They're coming from the carrier, so let's see if he foolishly sends his planes up. And if he doesn't send his planes up, perfect, I've taken him out of the game. I've essentially neutralized him by virtue of having him not be there anymore, basically, or not influencing the game. And he actually does send his torp planes out, so we're just going to go splash these guys real quick. And I know for a fact that's all the planes he has, because the game doesn't let you control how full your squadrons are. So if he's only sending up a squad of 2, that's because he only has 2 planes. So we'll just go and splash those guys real quick, rip in peace. And there we go, clear sky. That's the achievement, or the medal for shooting down 30 enemy planes. nice and easy, and it's actually, carriers, one of the things you can benefit from is doing math. If I remember right, the Langley has 24 planes. I've shot down 30. That probably means I've shot down all of his planes.
Our team has taken the lead.
You know, if you factor in the other ship, I think the Hosho carries 24 as well, maybe? I think they carry 24 as well, so you're talking maybe, there might be 48 to 50 planes in the game. I've shot down 30 of them, so I've probably stripped an entire carrier out of the game for the enemy team. And it's possible I might have done a little bit more. And now my fighter squadrons are on seeking search and destroy mode here. Honestly, I'm just trying to figure out where the carrier is, because once I know where he is, I can start influencing, or I can let my team know, because your planes do count as scouts, more or less. But tally-ho, there he is. Or at least there are his squadrons, which can't have been from too far away. Oh, did I get it backwards? Did we sync the Hosho? Yeah, who knows. I can never keep them straight on the screen. I mean, the easy way is to count the squadrons, but kind of hard in this recording mode that I'm using. Yep, so that's the Langley. My bad. So we sunk the Hosho earlier. But, yep, so we got the Langley here. That's the Tier 4 American, as opposed to the Hosho, which is the Tier 4 Japanese. And this is something that I'm able to do simply because I kind of overpower him and the way the game's gone. But I'm just going to float my planes off his, basically off his starboard side and just wait. You know, kind of like wolves circling the sheep. You know, there's not a lot he can do about it. And this would be a lot harder if he had an escort. This would be a lot harder if he had actual AA instead of the basically 0 that the Langley has. But in general, I can just leave my planes right here. What's he gonna do? He either has to send his planes up into my waiting arms, which means I'll shoot them all down, or he doesn't, and I just kind of continue sitting here because there's nothing else for me to do. And this is kind of the end game of air superiority, and really it makes sense. I have total air superiority. He can't send his planes up because they will die. So, goodbye me. And now I'm just honestly just kind of screwing around. Well, not screwing around, I mean I'm intently playing, but like, I'm just kind of, moving my planes around, trying to keep them outside the range of his what little AA he does have, just so I'm not foolishly losing planes, but just patiently waiting, because either he's going to send his planes out or the game's going to end. I mean, it's one or the other, so we'll see. Just get a little do 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 do. Okay, enough of that. So probably gonna get copyrighted for that. Maybe, doubt it. So meanwhile, while our fighters are just kind of hanging out, we're gonna micromanage our dive bombers here, and we see him turning. Dive bombers, the best attack vector is head on, just because that's the way dive bombers kind of work. You want to be dead on to them, so you have the longest target. But we set another fire there. Not sure it's gonna matter. The battleships are the ones that are gonna have to kill that guy. And I caught a brief glimpse of his planes there. Now, normally I would never advocate going over an enemy carrier, but in this case I'm confident because I know how weak the Langley's complement, or AA complement is. So he actually immediately tries to duck his planes back in, which I thought was cute, but I got 3 of them. So it's basically like he wasted 3 planes to try to bring me in range of whatever AA he does have, if he... Pretty sure he has something. But, it doesn't really... ultimately doesn't even matter. I take out some of his planes, and that's all he's got. Meanwhile, I guess I haven't really talked about moving your carrier, and I think there's different schools of thought. There's the kind of cheaty school of thought, which says run your nose into the edge of the map, that way you're a harder target to hit, which I think is kind of cheaty. Then there's the school of don't move at all, because, what's the point? I fall into the third school, which is the school of try to stay behind your team, but get as close to the fight as possible. So, like, in this game, my team's basically won, or at least won the southern half of the map. So I'm just kind of drifting along with my team behind them, because remember that restocking your planes is always a function of distance and time. You know, there's a fixed amount of time it takes regardless because of landing and repairing and everything. But there's also flight time there and back. So the closer you are to the battle, the shorter those flight times are, which is the substantial part. But the longer, or the further away you are, the safer you are. So it's always a balancing act. But we're just gonna, again, there's not a lot else to say. We're just patiently waiting. And here I am, shift clicking just to, create like little patrol orders and stuff. I actually got to give a shout out to the Hosho here. He's gonna have a great torpedo swarm here in a second. Just drop them in such a way that that one battleship's basically dead already, but he's gonna put it there, and it's kind of funny because I think he ends up hitting both battleships, which is very nice. He makes sure to hit the one that's nearly dead, but I'm pretty sure the other one catches that front one too, which is a nice little extra chunk of damage for your efforts. And we'll go ahead and dive bomb and just set a fire as well. And there's this guy's torpedo planes again. He sent them up before he died, which is cute, actually adorable even. So we're gonna send the boys in, sink them, splash them all, and then Shift F to send them back home. Because at this point, there's nothing left for them to do. We know where all the enemies are, so we may as well just kind of round out the game. Right, so now that we've looked at the air superiority package in its prime, let's look at the kind of the opposite, or not the opposite, the other half of the coin, the anti-ship package in a pretty good game for the anti-ship package. It's not ideal, as I'm kind of complaining here, because this was first game I tried out the anti-ship package because I'd just come off a bad game where I was a anti-air package with no enemy carriers, and my team didn't exactly carry the game. But such is life. So this one there is an enemy Langley or two. I think there's two, which is fine. I mean, I can get damage in. It sucks having somebody kind of counterplaying me, but such is life. Just as a reminder, this is the 2 dive bomber, 1 torpedo squadron. This is the most intensive damage lineup the Bogue has, and to be honest, it's not very impressive compared to the counterparts on the Japanese side, especially, who have more squadrons, more torpedo planes, more anti-ship stuff. But that's really kind of the Japanese carrier's hat, is they do all the damages, we do all, the American carriers do air superiority with a little bit of damage. But we're gonna have a pretty good time this game. We're just gonna I think we're gonna get a little bit lucky, and also the Langley that's with us is gonna play fairly well and get us a couple, kind of ward off some of the fighter squadrons to let us do our thing. But our objective, as you can expect with this loadout, is do the damages. And we're gonna we already see our first contestant here, a cruiser. Just shift targeting there because I kind of expect him to do something in particular, and sending the boys in, doing some good chunks of damage hopefully. You can see one of the Langleys had sent in their fighter squadron, but thankfully our Langley had his fighters in the area, so our planes are going to get to go in unopposed. Very nice. And it's important to remember that torpedoes and dive bombers do have, or at least some of them do have, rear-facing gunners, so you can shoot down some fighters that are chasing you. There's our first squad in, fire some hits, critical damage, took out a turret, some good damage right there on that cruiser, all for free because carriers are OP. So here I actually kind of had a choice. I could have gone after the Wyoming, or I could have gone for one of the others, but I saw the way this guy was moving, and I kind of messed it up. I didn't realize how slow he was going. I could have fired a little bit better. He actually nearly got away with this because he nearly got inside my arming circle, which would have meant none of those torpedoes would have done damage, but I just barely got it. So, I blew off another good chunk of health there. We've not taken him out of the game because he's a battleship, he has the repair and everything, but definitely done some good work. And kind of, since all my planes are returning home, I'm kind of thinking about macro what I want to do next. Right now I'm drifting behind this island, but I'm going to change my mind and start drifting up this way. Remember what I said in the last section still holds true here. it's all about flight times, because that's the only part of the reload process I control. So the sooner, the longer they have to fly, the fewer salvos I get off. So the more risks I take in terms of getting hit, the more damages I can do. So I think I actually kind of made a mistake here. I started deploying my dive bomber squadrons again, which I think is wrong. And the reason I think it's wrong is because it slows down my torpedo planes. Because you can't be launching planes and landing planes at the same time, for obvious reasons. So even though getting my dive bombers back in the air so they can start doing more damage is nice, maybe I should have reloaded more torpedo bombers first, or gotten their reload cycle going, because they do more damage than the dive bombers do, and maybe not as consistent, because dive bombers are basically fire and forget, and I know you can manual fire them, but it's just that is hard to do, because you're basically having to pinpoint exactly where they're going to be ahead of time. But in either case, it was a mistake, but I don't know if it really would have mattered in the scheme of things. We're talking about maybe a 5-second differential, and in this game, the way it's playing out, that's not going to be a big enough difference to matter. And now we're sending the dive bomber boys back in here. Again, shift clicking just to trying to align as best I can to his nose, so we get the optimal threads. And unfortunately, Langley's fighters show up here. Or one of the Langley's fighters showed up here. That kind of sucks. He didn't get there in time to stop Squad 3, so that's some damage, but Squad 4 got scared. So Squad 4, I think, just flat misses. But, it's okay. The Phoenix is on the other side of the map, and some other people are shooting at him anyway, so I'm not terribly worried about that. Meanwhile, my torpedo bombers are up, so let's send them off somewhere. Thought about sending it after him, but I realized that was a waste of my time. Plus, those fighters were there, so I probably didn't want to do that either. And I don't agree with this decision. I was actually watching it, kind of confused. He sends the carrier pilot sent his fighters to circle that Phoenix. Like, I don't agree with that, because that Phoenix is dead. There's nothing you can do about that Phoenix. Is dead. He should be either tracking where I am and trying to head off my torpedo planes, or finding a battleship to protect. Like this guy's doing. He's got his planes circling a damaged battleship, which was actually a target I was aiming at. But now I can't, because I'm not going to be able to get a good, reliable hit. And besides, our guys are shelling him anyway. So we got this. I'm pretty sure it's a Miyogi. Not really. I wasn't really paying attention to ship names at the time, because honestly, from a carrier's perspective, it doesn't really matter at this tier. None of them have AA. Higher tiers it matters more, because some have more AA than others. But I caught sight of this Wyoming, and I changed my mind, because he seems to be stopping. He's already kind of put himself in a weird spot, because where he's going and everything. But then he just stops himself, and I actually, I thought like, oh, he's moving, so you can see I'm kind of thinking about it. And I break off again, try to get a slightly better angle. And I actually muck it up just a little bit. I think, oh, he's moving more, and I finally get like the redeploy. But I'm going to hit him with most of these torpedoes, because I liked his idea. Varying speed is very hard to judge from the air. But he did it, he committed to it too early. He went for that changing speed play too early, so I figured it out. If he'd been going full steam, and then when my fighters are my torpedoes are making their final run, he slams on the brakes and starts turning. I've seen Warspites especially just straight up duck an entire spread of perfectly launched torpedoes, because nobody can really anticipate that. And if you are anticipating it, he just opens up his engine and keeps going. And I was actually complimenting this guy, because I thought he had a real good idea there. He didn't execute it perfectly. But, that's... What are you going to do? That's the best you can do. And I commit my dive bombers here to bombing out this battleship. This isn't really a kill steal thing. I'm not really, I don't buy kill stealing in this game. But 2, it's important to kill things, basically. And I wish I'd realized it a little bit sooner. I should have pulled away right here, because my planes are going to commit, and he's going to kill him. So my dive bombers don't actually do anything. And your planes, once they hit the point of no return, when their circle goes yellow or their range goes yellow, they're gonna drop whether there's a ship there or not. Such is life, though. But we're in good shape here. Game's about to end. This guy's gonna die, but he's gonna get 2 torpedoes off. And hey, that damage I did earlier, that actually means something, because this guy's basically dead. He's probably blown his repair. He's probably blown his heal. He doesn't have any health left. He's dead. And that's kind of the power you can have even when opposed. So the Bogue does have a pretty nice punch, especially considering, it's really an anti-submarine carrier, but it carries enough damage to play with the big boys. Right, so in this final game, what we're going to be looking at is kind of the worst case scenario in my mind for the Bogue. That is, I'm running the air superiority package, and there's no enemy carrier. Now, as I kind of indicated, this basically makes me kind of a worthless ship slot. Like, I only have 1 set of bombers, they don't do a lot of damage, but that doesn't mean you're actually completely worthless. And that's something that I kind of had to realize, and I want to make sure that this is something that's presented to other people. Your planes are scouts. Since my life more or less doesn't matter, and I don't have much damage potential, all I can do is send my fighters out to show where the enemy is. And that's actually an extremely powerful tool. It is something that I think may not get done enough, but is likely to become something that's a very important part of the metagame. Carriers can scout the enemy formations well ahead of any other ship, which is especially handy when you need to understand where are their battleships going, where are their cruisers going, where are their destroyers going. Because the only thing that can really spot a destroyer in their smoke cloud is basically a carrier, because our planes are a little bit good at that. A little bit OP. So, what am I going to do this game? I'm just going to set my my fighters on basically just long patrols and more or less just leave them be. I'm going to move them around a little bit, kind of trying to keep eyes on various people, but most of this game I'm just going to be focused on my dive bombers, trying to get what damage I can in, and trying to give my team all the information I can. Because, honestly, that's all I can do, and I think this is still useful for the team. For example, the destroyers that are, remember, destroyers are ambush predators, and I'm just shining a big red spot, or a big bright spotlight on them, saying, hey, destroyer over here. How about you don't get torped by him? Is that K? And you can see here, he's getting spotted by my plane. I'm pretty sure my plane is the one that's doing that, saying, nope, you're not getting to hide for free here. You're going to have to work a little harder. And once again, as I see the battle develop and I can see where our strong side is, I'm sending my carrier in closer. Again, very risky. So you can see I'm kind of wrestling with how I want to commit. But the point stands that the closer I am, the shorter my refueling time is, blah, 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 blah. And right here I send my scout planes on kind of a big, grand tour, which I don't know if it was the right call, but my idea was just to get them out of my hair for a little bit, and I wanted to map out their entire fleet. I wanted to make sure I understood where their, battleships were. Because that's what's really relevant. Once you've kind of tracked the destroyers, next step is to track the battleships. And I actually realized here that cruisers can send up little fighter planes, and for whatever reason, my planes were like, oh, he's shooting at us. Should we do something? No. Boss man said keep flying. So I lost a couple planes there, which I thought was silly, but my fighters finally, I woke up and he goes down in flames. Scumbag. But, Grand tour interrupted, but hey, look, I found their fleet. So, it was a good thing, all in all. Found the enemy fleet. And this is, again, this is all useful information. Knowing where they are. Now, again, if I was a Zuiho? Zuiho. If I was a Zuiho, the Tier 5 Japanese carrier, I finally remembered what it was called, I would be sinking the crap out of some of these ships, because it's not like they're maneuvering very much. But sadly, I'm not, so I got to make do with what I can, which is primarily track them, be obnoxious. If you find a way to sit on top of a destroyer's head and keep him perma-marked, because destroyers live and die by their stealth, and you've got a flashlight, so make their stealth not a thing. And yeah, I'm losing planes here and there, but it again ultimately doesn't matter. And I see another one of these fighter planes coming. I'm like, oh, get out of here. So I'm just gonna go send my planes back home after I shoot this down, because since I've identified where most of their fleet is, I can go and restock my squadrons, because why not? But Squad 3 did good work there. Got a couple of planes shot down, and initially I was gonna send my I was sending my dive bombers off this, and I was thinking, nah, I'm probably gonna break off because somebody's liable to kill him. So I'm kind of debating. I realize he's not shooting at him. Who is? Is anybody shooting at him? Not seeing any fire. Right. Okay, I'll do it. Because somebody needs to kill this guy. It's kind of annoying to me that nobody killed him previous, but we could finish him off. And it looks like our buddy was gonna die in either way. So such is life. And that guy gets his beyond the grave medal, which whatever. But we're winning the west side of the map pretty hard, so not a lot for me to do except continue scouting. But yeah, I mean this is not an ideal outcome for the Bogue or for any carrier. You're supposed to be able to influence the game more than this, but just because you can influence the game the full amount doesn't mean you can't influence the game in some way. So now let's transition over to the final opinion. Okay, so final opinion time. What do I think of the USS Bogue? I like it. It's a huge improvement over the Tier 4 Langley. If possible, I subscribe to the philosophy that just free XP your way through the Langley. Because it's just, there's nothing you're going to learn on the Langley that you can't learn on the Bogue. And you'll just save some of your hair from getting pulled out. But the Bogue is exactly as advertised. It's the early makings of the American carrier philosophy of air superiority, though it does have a viable damage composition with the 2 bombers, 1 torpedo bomber. It's never going to be as good as its Japanese counterparts in terms of raw damage potential, but the air superiority loadout in games where there are enemy carriers, you can dominate the skies. As for the ship itself, it's slow, it's not very maneuverable, but it's also a flat top. What do you expect? Honestly, it's definitely worth the time playing. It's a great carrier to kind of learn the ropes on. Like I said, the Langley really doesn't teach you anything that the Bogue can't, and the Bogue is just going to be a less frustrating vessel to learn on. Remember to leave a rating below. Subscribe if you want to support the channel and you love what we're doing. Feel free to leave any comments or questions. Love to answer what I can. And until next time, I've been Corny Phil. See ya.